Probably more tasteful until after 9/11 passes anyway. And then, well, too bad you're going to be tasteful.
Well,
which because our manager is a tyrant.
Yes.
Despite the fact that
we are here for a respectful, sensitive podcast.
She is very good at her job. At least.
Yeah. Now we've gone commercial. We're being censored by our own employees, which is
exactly.
I will say it's not in the slides, but today or yesterday began the trial of the September 11th hijackers down in Guantanamo. And of course they're going to be found guilty, but they shouldn't be because they were tortured for information. This whole thing has been a farce. So I know it's not in the slides because I was too lazy to put it in, but this country's sense of justice for what happened on 9/11 is that of a broken country with dumbass ideas. And there's not any sense of justice anyway, but torturing people and then getting some sort of kangaroo court conviction isn't my idea of a functioning system, but that's how the system was designed to function in the first place. So the world is fucking terrible. Who gives a shit? Next slide.
Well, I mean, obviously we should start this episode respectfully. I would like to say, please all rise for the national anthem. Well, welcome to Well, There's Your Problem. It's a podcast about engineering disasters with slides. I'm Justin Rosniak. I'm the person who's talking right now. Anyway, now that we've weeded out everyone without a sense of humor, let's go.
No, they're going to stick around.
Pronouns.
Oh, my pronouns are he and him.
Got your ass. Alice Caldwell Kelly, she and her.
You didn't say Liam.
Yeah, Liam.
Yeah, Liam. Hi.
It didn't seem appropriate. It's a somber occasion.
We already blew that. Hi, I'm Liam Anderson. My pronouns are he and him. And for those of us who are going to leave mad replies in the comments, your government failed you, and we're not the ones to get mad at. We didn't crash the fucking plane into the Pentagon.
I was about to say, yeah.
We also didn't do some looming tower shit. So
yes,
I implore you to read that fucking book.
Oh my god, yes.
I don't know what that is.
It's a book and now it's a film or a TV series.
It's a TV series, yeah.
Yeah, about how the FBI and the CIA both kind of knew that 9/11 was going to happen or something very like it.
Kind of 9/11,
yeah,
right.
and like due to sort of that like instinctive bureaucratic hostility, they both refused to share any useful information with each other, and in fact actively hindered each other.
And then 9/11.
Yeah.
Well, that, among other things, is something we may explore later in this episode. Our subject today is the Pentagon. But first, we have to do the goddamn news. Wow, someone stretched this photo.
Yeah, me.
Yeah.
I don't like having the like white space either side of it.
All right,
so the climes there are changing.
The climate does appear to be changing. This is fun. Okay, so Hurricane Ida ripped through the East Coast. Having ripped through New Orleans, it just continued to be an extremely strong storm.
Overland.
Yeah, just overland.
We should point that out.
Here's a picture of I-676 in Philly. You'll notice that it is
they completed
a canal.
The widening works.
I was about to say, yeah, it's traversable by barge now.
The Ever Given has blocked I-676.
Yeah, it's interesting to be the guy who took the photo for the goddamn news.
I will say, not in Philadelphia. I don't believe Philadelphia had any fatalities. I'm sure someone will correct me if I'm wrong, but in our
that guy who dived into the floodwater, he's gonna die.
Dead. That guy's dead.
That guy's dead.
He doesn't know it. He might be walking around talking.
No,
but
he is well on his way.
deceased.
Probably want to get a tetanus booster shot at least.
Maybe a couple of them, really.
I think that it's a course of like 6 shots to get if you actually have been exposed.
Booster. Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Because when I hit my head, they gave me a tetanus booster. But I will say that as our resident social justice monkey, people drowned in the suburbs of Philadelphia. 4 people, I believe, drowned. Some people Rosna used to live with, their house was flooded out and all their shit is destroyed.
Yeah. Yes. And of course, New York City was destroyed.
New York City was destroyed, as we know from the wreckage of the live show. I will say, it's all climate change. I know people keep talking about that tweet about climate change is watching disasters from someone else's cell phone until you're the one holding the cell phone.
Mm-hmm.
This shit is pretty fucking scary. And people drowned in basement apartments in New York. There's something really haunting. Someone published about 2 guys trying to get their roommate out, realizing he wasn't with them, and all they could do was listen to his dying screams. Yep. We live in a profoundly unjust world. I'm really fucking tired of it.
The city of New York has announced, though, that they're going to fix this by giving people who they believe to be living in basement apartments targeted notifications on their phones.
Oh, great. Cool.
Oh, my God.
Yeah, wow. Really fucking fixing the issue, boys.
That's the whole plan, by the way.
Neoliberalism is a rotten fucking thing. It's all tight. Everything's great.
Parasite was a documentary.
Right. You are simply paralyzed to do nothing while capitalism destroys the very ground beneath you. And then you're expected to bend over and say, "Thank you, Mr. Bezos. Aren't you wonderful?" And idiots on Twitter will criticize you for having a joke with your dad. I fucking hate this place.
It's not good.
Yeah, it's not good. I believe it would be a prudent decision at this time to try and avoid living in a basement apartment if possible.
But that's the thing. Nobody lives in one of those things by choice. I mean, it's New York City.
Is our advice. Oh, I'm sorry. We hope your landlord has a nice time.
Invite your landlord to have a nice time and then live in their apartment, which is probably much nicer.
Also, not that electoralism matters, but you can be you can scream in these people's fucking faces. They work for you. Get real hostile. Throw some eggs at some people. Just follow them around screaming and chanting. Make their daily existence miserable. If we're gonna go down, they should come down with us.
Speaking of electoralism doesn't matter.
Oh yeah, Roe v. Wade's illegal now.
Yes.
At about the same time that Mexico legalized abortion because of riots, which goes to show you that riots work. State Bill 8, is it State Bill 8 or State Bill 3?
State Bill
8. Yeah.
State Bill
3 is the voting restrictions.
Oh, great! I love that I can't tell the
everyone
bad
in
things
this photo
apart.
should have a nice time.
Yeah. So it's now not only is it illegal to terminate a pregnancy medically in Texas after basically any time at all. It's 6 weeks, which is by that point most people don't know that they're pregnant. But also the state is now empowering that
the rat line.
Yeah, or anybody, even somebody who lives outside of Texas can now bring a private suit against anybody or any organization that in any way facilitates an abortion happening.
I will say people have been apparently cramming the tip line with Shrek porn.
Yes,
and,
good.
The Nazi host. Their web host is a company called Epic, who often hosts, I believe, hosted Daily Stormer.
Yeah, and, literally led by a guy called Rob Monster. That's his actual name.
He has he's decided to no longer host the rat website. And if at some point if you're too gruesome for the Nazis, maybe reconsider. Especially this guy back here in the hat. I want to punch him in the face. It's just
this fucking tableau of humanity here. Yeah,
it's
the worst image I could think of. The reason they're all doing this with their hands is because it's called the Heartbeat Act.
Oh my god!
Because like it's essentially like that's the point at which there is a fetal heartbeat that's detectable in a fucking clump of cells.
I hope every single person in this photo has a nice time, and is not I'm just gonna say it, you can bleep it out.
Yeah, leave in the axe part, I think.
Yeah, dude, I'm not in the fucking mood today. Obviously,
I don't think any of us are.
Today has not been a good day.
Yeah.
Personally,
the good news is that President Biden has exercised strong leadership on this issue by
kicking it to the curb.
Kicking it to the curb. Yeah, it's essentially it's a massive for the Supreme Court if they decide to get around to it, and
which
the Supreme
they have
Court,
by allowing it to go through and wait for the challenges.
Exactly. It's really annoying how like the Democrats basically refuse to take any kind of offensive stance on
no, this is entirely
abortion,
so they can raise money, dude.
It is.
The Democratic Party exists only as a machine to raise money,
weepy fundraising emails.
Yeah, that's it.
Like,
that's it.
Our hearts are broken. Give us $60.
Yeah. It's the Republicans are at least good at what they do. They just ram shit through. I mean, you have a majority. I don't know if you're Chuck Schumer. What you do is you go into Joe Manchin's office and you hold a 38 to his head and you say, "Wouldn't you like to pass the PRO Act, Joe?" And he says, "Yes, sir, I would."
Yeah, it's like Roe versus Wade for the Democrats seems to be like an instrument used for party discipline rather than anything they want to like make any progress
because
on.
If you wanted to change it, you would have to do some things that would not be decorous. You would have to do things like immediately fire the Senate parliamentarian, or campaign on like, I'm going to add 26 Supreme Court justices. They're all going to have pink hair.
Yes,
and they're all gonna they're gonna write their pronouns into the beginning of all of their rulings.
Yes.
Oh, they're all gonna wear brooches. They're gonna wear special brooches for when they disagree.
Put me on the Supreme Court.
I have finally come around, but I put my dad on the Supreme Court. You know what I do want to talk about is this ventriloquist doll come to life behind the Jeb clone. You guys see who I'm talking about?
Which guy?
Bottom left.
I see him.
Where?
You see
this guy
next to the woman in the yellow pantsuit.
Oh, sure enough, yeah.
I try not to make fun of people based on their looks because look at me. But like, holy shit, dude, get out of the sun. You need to wear a big floppy hat everywhere you go, and maybe go back to the crypt from which you crawled out of.
I'm a big fan of cowboy hat guy. Like wearing my Stetson to the Heartbeat Bill signing.
So, have a nice whatever, dude. Life is exhausting. Life is pain. Nothing good happens anymore. We are a decaying empire. And one day we will collapse into the sea, and we'll all be better for it.
The good news is it's relatively safe and relatively easy to get yourself abortifacient pills and do your own abortion in a way that is unprovable by the state of Texas or anywhere. There is a piece that you can Google about that, and I guess we can link that in the description also. And speaking of links in the description,
yes,
we're also going to put some links in for donating to Texas abortion funds, which this bill is an attempt to like club to death with vexatious lawsuits. And if you donate to them and then email us the receipt at wtyppod@gmail.com, you get the bonus episodes like forever, which is the best deal we can give you, at least.
Yeah. Solidarity with the people of Texas who need healthcare, not solidarity with these people who should all possible.
Yeah, looking like a good way to fill a ditch, this photo.
Yeah, look oh my God. Kneel him over. No, Roz, it has not been a good day.
Yeah,
You're gonna have to edit this out.
I'm gonna have to edit a lot.
This segment's gonna sound like I think they should have a nice time.
Yeah.
I listen, my fucking anger has to go somewhere. I try to be nice and respectful to the people in my life because I love them very much. It's hard to deal with depression and anxiety, and in my case, schizoaffective disorder. And I love the people in my life very much. And so my unrelenting, uncontrollable rage goes out to the people in this photo who I hope are one day knelt over a ditch and shot.
Yeah,
and,
you're like a white hat hacker. You're like using your powers for good.
Yeah.
Yes.
And stay pissed off at these people. They're not your friends. You don't know shit to fascists.
And it's not gonna stick, like one way or the other. And I don't mean that in the rely on the Supreme Court, trust the process kind of way. I just mean like it is an essentially unenforceable law. Like if like people need abortions, they're gonna get abortions. It's just a question of how
hard do you make it?
Yeah, how much the state kind of fumbles around embarrassing itself trying to prevent them.
People have always gotten abortions. People have always needed to not be pregnant.
Yeah.
People have always had trouble having children. Pregnancies have always gone wrong. We are not a perfect species. People need access to abortion for a myriad of reasons. It's none of the state's goddamn business why you need one.
Yep.
It's no one's business but your own, possibly your doctor's. And if your doctor says, "Oh, I can't do that," you should make him have a nice time.
Yeah, and you should get a second doctor.
And
yes.
Too. Not the second doctor. Hopefully, the second doctor is better at his job. But a lot of people. All right,
well, Universal Jobs Program digging these ditches.
Yeah, well, that's my Green New Deal. Is we're gonna need a lot of ditch diggers.
What makes the grass grow, Liam?
Oh, it's the blood of fascists.
That's right.
We're watering the tree of liberty with the blood of the entire state of Texas. Sorry, boys.
I'm sorry, Justin. We just needed to get
actually.
that.
It's been a day.
Well, I mean, just think. If you voted Democrat, this wouldn't have happened. Oh, wait.
Oh, my God, dude.
Hey, I live in a swing state, motherfucker.
Oh, my God.
I can justify anything.
She's electable if you fucking vote for her.
Thank you.
No, listen, I threw up in my trash can. I voted for Hillary Clinton. And then I did self-flagellation for the next 12 hours. As opposed to doing what I actually did, which just pass out drunk.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Although, if you're in Texas, electoralism works because then you can get shit like this passed.
Yes.
Maybe the problem is the people you're running. But she is electable if you vote for her.
What we need to do is to refashion the Democratic Party into a sort of like scorched earth culture war organization, but from the opposite side. One that is willing to use every evil, dirty, low-down trick possible in order to get its agenda passed. Whether that's like a long, decades-long sleeper campaign of a long march through the federal courts, or whether that's pure intransigence in Congress. But that should have started about 25 years ago.
You people are going to get universal health care whether you like it or not. You are going to go to the free doctor whether or not you want to.
In conclusion, resurrect Huey Long and give him a Gundam.
Yes.
Huey Long's Supreme Court would have legalized abortion in 1937, but also
and it's 81 justices.
It's 81 justices, all surnamed Long. Yeah.
But don't you have a taste?
I do declare.
All right. That was the goddamn news.
Let's just get through it. Let's just get through it.
Okay. So I thought it'd be fun maybe to talk about the Pentagon history and some of the predecessor buildings to the Pentagon.
Oh, check out this wedding cake. I hate it.
Oh, look at it. It's Second Empire. Do you like that shit, Roz? Do you like that shit?
Yo, you remember that week on Twitter where everything was made of cake? I feel like this is the architecture.
Why does the guy in the foreground look like he's standing, like he's an army guy standing on a pedestal? He's like one of those green army guys.
Yeah, he's a traffic cop.
He's a traffic cop, yeah.
Why is the pedestal only like an inch tall?
Because
no one's driving that fast.
Because we had to like humiliate traffic cops to keep them in their place. It was a different time.
Bring that back. That's the only thing we can bring back from this era. And Mark Twain, I guess.
This is the State War and Navy building, right? And this was the early...
I'm at the combination State Department building, War Department building, Navy Department building.
Yes.
I quite like it. I am a sucker for Second Empire.
No.
Yeah.
It looks like the Lego sets of like towns that you could never quite afford when you were a kid.
I was an only child, so I could afford them. But
Mark
Liam,
Twain
you're
called
cancelled
this,
for having too much money.
Oh, we're all apparently all of us are.
Yeah. Mark Twain called this the ugliest building in America.
Mark, and he was wrong.
This was the early headquarters of the American military, sort of immediately post-Civil War. It was commissioned by Ulysses S. Grant. It was built from 1871 to 1888, right?
Oh, you could plan a genocide from this building, and they did.
Yes. It's a big dumb Second Empire type building. It was the world's largest office building when it was finished. And this is going to be a theme. Had 566 rooms, 10 acres of floor space, right? And over the next 40 years, and especially during World War I, the intended tenants outgrew the building as the American imperial war machine, the great Satan, America outgrew it, right?
Yeah, more guns, more ammunition, more boots, more beans, more bureaucrats,
more administrators.
Eat, baby.
Yeah, that's right.
So during World War I, right, FDR, who was the Franklin Delano Roosevelt, obviously, the Assistant Secretary of the Navy, put forth the idea of, since we're so space constrained, we should build some temporary buildings for military administration, right? And this led to the erection of the main Navy and munitions buildings, right?
Small aside, it is very funny to me that people think that FDR had like advanced knowledge of Pearl Harbor and let it happen.
He didn't.
When you consider how much of a fucking simp he was for the Navy, a thing that I approve of a great deal, but like. Not only was he assistant secretary of it pretty much by choice, like that was his job that he wanted, he used Anchors Away as his campaign song and shit. Like he wanted to have been an admiral, and so he, I guess, let Pearl Harbor happen. Anyway,
now that said, we did let the Japanese invasion of the Aleutians happen.
That's true,
because we had cracked their code and knew exactly what they were doing. For more, please see the Lions Led by Donkeys episode on the Battle of the Aleutian Islands. But literally no one lives there, or at least on many of the islands the Japanese invaded. Obviously, some native peoples do live there. God bless them. But yeah, we knew it was coming. We just wanted to stick them there for a while.
Mm-hmm.
So FDR's idea was these buildings going to be cheap. They were going to be made of wood, so that they were going to be really ugly. He wanted really ugly buildings. The idea being, everyone would want them.
He got his wish. Holy shit!
Everyone would want them torn down immediately after the war.
The Drexel solution.
Yeah. And the smart, what he wanted was to have them on the White House front lawn. Right?
I do kind of like that idea. Just being like, yeah, fuck you. They're just here
Look
now.
At it. You guys like it? You love this shit.
So he got one of those things. The buildings were ugly. But
no, I don't see the wood.
Yeah, no, they were made of concrete, and they put them on the National Mall, right? So these were the total floor space of these. And I'm just talking about the munitions building and the Navy building, right? Which are these two guys. There were a whole host of other temporary buildings built as well. You can see everything here is just temporary buildings, right? These buildings were some of the largest temporary buildings ever constructed. There was twice the floor space of the State War Navy building, right? And after World War I, they couldn't quite shrink down the military administration to what it was before, right?
Oh, that's weird.
Yeah.
It's almost like it's like a ratchet. It only goes in one direction.
Yes. So the buildings stayed up, and in fact, in World War II, they were expanded. But there were plans afoot for a more permanent building, since while these temporary buildings were particularly solid temporary buildings, they all started having major issues after only a few decades, right?
I do remember a story about these buildings in World War II, which is in the early days of the OSS. Bill Donovan used to train agents by having them like try to plant dummy bombs on or in these buildings. Apparently this was extremely easy to do. So
this is what we like to call radical architectural criticism.
Yes. So,
Now go up there with this this bomb just says, I don't appreciate this form or the use of materials.
Yeah. I think this building's a little monotonous. You should really try and break up the massing, and then you just detonate the bomb.
Well, we're gonna talk about that later.
Wow, this is true. Now, one of the things about these buildings is, they survived World War II, and then they stayed up until I think 1970 was when finally they were falling apart so badly that Nixon was like, okay, yeah, we're going to tear these things down. And they had to buy a whole bunch of office space, I think in Crystal City, which is across the river, in order to fit the people who still didn't fit into what was supposed to be the last building they would have to build for the DOD, right? Which was the Pentagon.
Sort of the whole process of expanding federal bureaucracy out into Maryland and Virginia
to meet the needs of the expanding bureaucracy, Hollis.
That's right.
The bureaucracy will expand to the space it is allowed.
Yeah, we all played Civ 4, Roz.
There's a lot of things that a modern state needs that require a bunch of like office buildings in like Suitsville or Beltsville with a bunch of like antennas on the roof.
Yes.
Don't worry about it.
My favorite, although they're not technically the DoD, is the NSA exit at Fort Meade. Roz took a picture of it once and captioned it, secret government shenanigans next right, do not look.
Yeah, it just says this exit, the NSA. Yeah, and it's like the exit.
The CIA have one of those too. Yeah,
the CIA has an exit you're not supposed to use either,
or look at.
Yeah, no, I think my favorite transparent op in that sort of area is there's a catering company that like nominally delivers food to schools and stuff in that area that doesn't deliver to any schools, has a bunch of silvered out windows, unmarked white vans going in and out all the time, and a massive SATCOM antenna on the roof. And I'm just like, nice.
No, that's actually a catering company. You know that, right? Yeah.
Is it actually?
No, Alice.
I was like,
damn it, I'm stuck in a fucking like puzzle palace here. Fuck.
I do like the idea of them being like, yeah, no, we're actually the caterers. We don't do anything except cater to other intelligence agencies.
I mean, it makes sense. Someone would have to do it.
The Pentagon North parking exit is actually a frequently used commuter shortcut between Washington Boulevard and the Richmond Highway.
No, stealing
there used to be a Burger King in the basement of the Pentagon, or am I thinking of something else?
There still is.
Oh, thank God. They couldn't take that from us, God damn it.
Yes.
So we replaced a catastrophically ugly pair of buildings with
a five-sided catastrophically ugly building. So this the Pentagon was, supposed to be this is it. This is the big building we need. This is all we need. It's truly enormous, right? 5 stories above ground, 2 stories below ground, 150 acres of floor space, right? Currently houses about 23,000 employees. I think more when it was built, though. And these
they've all gone out to Crystal City and all that shit.
Yeah. This was built on the site of Hoover Airfield in Arlington, Virginia, as well as built on the site of a black neighborhood called Hell's Bottom, right? Because you got to get some racism in there.
What a fucking name, though.
You can't build anything in America without doing some racism.
Yes,
that's just
exactly.
Inherent.
Speaking of racism, it was also designed to be a segregated facility.
Because it's in Virginia.
This is the one fact that everybody knows about the Pentagon is that it has twice as many bathrooms as it needs to because it was built with segregated bathrooms.
Yeah, exactly. But Eisenhower actually refused to enforce the segregation. He gave an order saying, don't do it. Just don't do it. Come on,
Which is
guys.
the kind of federal government that you like occasionally.
Yeah,
where you're just like, oh, fuck you.
Additional fun piece of racism here is this highway right here. This is the Jefferson Davis Highway.
Same one.
Yeah. This was not renamed until like a couple years ago, I think. Virginia just stuck it right up there at the border with the district, despite the Union, I guess.
Sends a message.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, I mean, we have what's the big base in North Carolina? Fort Bragg. We have Fort Hood.
Yeah.
Because those men were heroes or whatever fucking thing. Also, while I'm at it, the statue of General Lee came down.
Trump is mad about this too, which just makes it all the sweeter.
You know what? I will say, I saw he's going to comment on a boxing match, which is our counter programming, because that boxing match is on 9/11. Someone find me a way to pirate that stream.
Oh yeah, that's going to be an American event,
Yeah. So this building was built with 5 concentric rings of offices, ring A through ring E, right? It's different rings of offices because it's an old building built before air conditioning, so all the offices were designed to have cross ventilation.
I do have a question.
Yes.
Why was it not built as a skyscraper? Because this was the 40s. Skyscrapers, like the Empire State Building and shit, was up by then. Do we know? Like,
because I would assume it was as part of the L'Enfant plan. I believe there was a sort of a concerted effort here to avoid ruining views of all the various monuments on the mall.
Okay.
Right. I mean, it was not subject, obviously, to the height limit in the district, but
right. Well, that's why I was asking. If you're building in Virginia, you're not subject to the height limit.
Yeah.
But I
think it's just that you have the space, right?
Plus, that was my other thought.
It makes it also look a bit less vulnerable, a bit more imposing, a bit more fortification-ish, I guess.
Because it does look like a star fort, which I imagine was part of the thinking. Okay.
Yeah, I think it was originally designed as a Pentagon, because it was supposed to go slightly north of here at a site called Arlington Farms, which was temporary GI housing, which was built on top of Robert E. Lee's plantation, hence Arlington Farms. But they wound up moving it south because Hoover Airfield was, I guess, cheaper, had better access, and they could also demolish a black neighborhood, which is, something you always want to do for a big construction project, right?
Oh, it's like a fringe benefit if you're a DoD planner.
And this building has, the center courtyard here is called Ground Zero because that's where everyone thinks the bomb is going to hit.
Military humor. I actually I know another example of this, which is the one of the sort of like the first Soviet or post-Soviet, first Russian attaché to SHAEF, Allied headquarters Europe. When he left a farewell gift of like planting a couple of I think it was like beech trees, poplar trees in the courtyard, and this was a very elaborate pun because a poplar in Russian is the code name for one of their ICBMs. So he finally got to put a couple in the place where they were going to go.
There was.
Good for him, man. That's commitment to the bit. We like to see that.
There was some debate in Soviet intelligence, if I'm not mistaken, about what exactly was in the center of the courtyard, because there was a little building there that they always saw high-ranking generals and military personnel going to, and they thought it was some kind of, I don't know, there's some kind of secret entrance to like an underground facility or something there. Well, it was a hot dog stand.
That main sort of Central Park bit also like has a special status in military law in terms of like when you're allowed to wear fucking hats outdoors and shit. It's like an exceptional case because the military is very normal.
Going to the hot dog stand counts as an exceptional case.
Yeah.
Good. America number one.
I think it's like you might not have to like salute people. Or
we're
something.
all equal at the hot dog stand.
Exactly. Communism's greatest victory.
We're all God's children at the hot dog stand.
This building was built for sort of really easy highway access. You can see all these clover leaves here, right, from the various freeways going through. You may also notice a series of ramps leading into the building, right? That is, of course, because the original design for the Pentagon had a very large bus station in the basement, right? And this was not just for serving the building itself. It was a big bus transfer station. It still is to this day. It's just not in the basement anymore. They had to move it out of the basement, not just for security reasons, but because there was no ventilation. Yeah, so it sort of filled with smoke pretty quickly. They had tried ventilating the smoke for a while, and eventually, I think like in the 70s, they just moved the bus station out. Right around when Metro came through, I think. Or maybe slightly before, because this does also now have a metro station, which is also a major transfer point. And this building broke ground, funnily enough, on September 11th, 1941.
Happy anniversary.
Yes.
Yeah. Wow.
Not happy, I suppose, but
you may be interested to know that the form factor of the Pentagon is something that other countries have since sought to imitate.
Yes.
And the current military junta of Egypt is hard at work as part of their general plan to build a new capital city apart from Cairo. They're building the Octagon.
Oh my God.
They've
more
gone
sides.
Up. They have gone up, and you can see concept drawings where it's like a big, it looks like it's about to fire a laser out of the middle. It's a series of concentric octagons built in a sort of like pseudo-pharaonic style. So it's had some architectural impact, let's say.
Every time a new too big for its britches military dictatorship starts off, they're gonna build a building with like one more side until it's basically a circle.
Yeah, join me in the command center that looks like a fucking D20.
Yeah, this is our 128 gun because we ran out of names. We ran out of names. Yeah, I think it goes up to like I have no idea what it goes up to.
You could probably like bash something together out of the Latin pretty quickly. You can do like sesquiquipper hexagon or whatever.
Let's go with that. Yeah. There have been not too many like major security incidents at the Pentagon until what we're going to talk about today. Famously, back during the Vietnam War, October 21st, 1967, 35,000 people came to protest the Vietnam War here.
They tried to levitate it.
They did try to levitate.
They tried to levitate the Pentagon.
Oh, did it work?
Yeah, my dad was there.
Yeah, that's
not a joke. My dad was there.
They levitated it. They turned it one face clockwise, and then they put it back down.
Yeah.
No.
The people.
Good thing the building was so symmetric, or there'd be there'd be some structural damage from that.
It's totally fine, but everybody's really irritated because their office is in a different wing now.
Yeah. Yeah, I like the view. They got to shuffle everyone around the building now. That's where this famous photo of George Harris here putting the flowers in the rifles, right? Fun fact, George Harris, also a drag queen, performed under the stage name Hibiscus, started a gay performance group called the Coquettes, right? And they would drop acid and sing show tunes.
Dudes rock.
Mom?
But one of the things about the Pentagon is because it's so remote from the city and sort of has a hostile location, right? There's not a huge number of demonstrations which occur here, right?
Yeah, it's out of town. A guy did set himself on fire on the steps outside Robert McNamara's office once to protest the Vietnam War. There's a bit about it in the documentary Fog of War, which is a series of interviews with McNamara, where psychopath that he is, he's just like, oh man, don't like that, and then just got back to work.
I know in 1972, the Weather Underground bombed a women's room.
Yeah.
In the Pentagon.
The Weather Underground.
Yes.
Hey.
I have mixed feelings, all right? Because like half the Weather Underground actions are like, yeah, we robbed a wages van and shot 2 security guards and 4 more cops in order to fund an act of terrorism. And then the act of terrorism is we blew up a toilet.
Bring the war home, Alice.
Like Chaser Boudin's dad just got parole, I think, for a Weather Underground thing. for being the driver in one of those wages van robberies. But on the other hand, blowing up a toilet.
Yeah.
Blowing up a toilet is funny.
Yeah, that is true.
It's kind of funny. All right. So anyway, that's some background on the building. Now I have to talk about some background on Al-Qaeda.
I've heard of these guys.
Yeah. Yeah, not too popular anymore. Everyone sort of moved on to ISIS now. But I understand.
Old heads know.
Old heads know, yeah.
Yeah, I'm into that kind of terrorism you probably even haven't heard of.
Before ISIS was cool, I was in the Mujahideen.
It's Al-Qaeda, as you said, means the base, whereas Daesh means the cringe.
Yes. So there have been a lot of
gotta get canceled.
I'm not actually calling Al-Qaeda base. Thank you.
Yeah, just as a you do not, it turns out, have to hand it to Al-Qaeda.
Nobody actually knows where that name comes from, by the way. Like, there's a bunch of different theories, because like the word is, as far as I know, as ambiguous almost in Arabic as it is in English. So there have been suggestions that it refers to like a database, but also like a foundational base, because bin Laden's deal was sort of like you would bring him a terrorist plot ready-made and he would like supply the training and the funding and the shit. But like nobody actually knows for certain.
Bunch of guys in his office trying to like pitch terrorist plot,
pretty
like
much,
they're trying to pitch a screenplay.
Pretty much, he was pretty much like a terrorist venture capitalist. But yeah, it's a curiously like unreligious, unideological name for a group, the base.
Yeah.
I mean, if you're fundamentalist, could it be, I don't know too much about Wahhabism, but is that like, sort of a rough transliteration of fundamental
to
base?
Me, I haven't heard anything like that. It could be, but
I certainly don't know.
No, I don't. I don't think of it for myself as like a religiously charged term at all. So
I don't like these I don't like these new hip hop style terrorists like ISIS.
I like these lunch pail terrorists.
We need to go back to Al Qaeda. They got good fundamentals. They got hustle. They
know how to grind. You don't see that in these new boys. They're all about the flash. What happened to the good old days where you'd simply blow up an embassy. I don't need to see that with beheadings.
Liam, I see these new Daesh guys. They just put out videos. All they do is they put out videos. I've never seen anything even approaching like a 9/11 style attack.
No. They're just glory boys. Just more glory boys.
So remember how at the beginning of this we said Anne-Marie was trying to get us to be sensitive? I think we're doing a great job. Let's talk about Operation Cyclone.
Sorry.
There's been a lot of big brain takes in the press recently, right? About how we actually didn't fund Al-Qaeda or the Taliban, right? And this is true in a really pedantic sense, right?
It's a terminological inexactitude. We funded, in particular, like a network of Gulf financiers, and we also funded a cross-border operation led by a guy called Jalaluddin Haqqani, because he was seen as very sort of pliable. And incidentally, that guy's kid, now currently the interior minister of the new Emirate of Afghanistan.
Actually, my pedantry was more that we did totally fund the Taliban. It just didn't happen to always be the Mujahideen. It used to be a bunch of Pakistanis.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. No, it's just that my problem is more that just they're not the same organization.
Yeah, we
did fund them. I want to be very clear on that.
I'm playing both sides, so I always come out on top. In order to fuck with the Soviets,
1946.
We funded the Northern Alliance. We funded Massoud, probably not as much as we should have done. We funded Dostum, probably more than we should have done. We funded but we also funded the Haqqani network. So
there was an incident in Syria a few years ago where I believe NSA-backed rebels were fighting CIA-backed rebels.
Oh, classic move. And I mean, the thing about Jalaluddin Haqqani, who very, very interesting guy. It was that, like, as part of his deal of being the most internationally connected mujahid, he was the first one to call for foreign fighters to come and do jihad in Afghanistan.
Yep.
And that's what caused the first influx of largely Arab fighters to, go and fight the Soviets in Afghanistan. And that's the sort of like ethnic base, if you like, of what would become Al-Qaeda.
Right. I before anyone gets mad at me and saying that I am part of the CIA in the comments again, no, I'm just as critical of U.S. foreign policy as you are. I just don't trust your sources all that much.
Yeah, you can't be out here relying on the fucking gray zone. Okay.
Yeah, sorry about it. That was the publication in question.
Yes.
Okay, so for reference, this is in the context of the Soviet-Afghan war, right? We're funneling money to the Mujahideen.
Which, by the way, since I didn't get enough of people telling me I was being too critical of the Soviet Union on the Romania episode, was a series of inexcusable war crimes.
Yes.
Definitely for more, check out the Lions Led by Donkeys episodes about the Soviet-Afghan war. Back to our originally scheduled programming before Roz loses his goddamn mind.
Doing shit that made Me Lie look like preschool.
Yes.
So we've sort of funneled billions of dollars, as Alice said, through various sources, one of which is through the Pakistani intelligence service, right? The ISI, Inter Services Intelligence. This was Operation Cyclone. We were funding them from like 1979 to 1989. There's some limited funding afterwards. The idea is to give the Soviets major headaches, especially in the countryside, right? These Mujahideen.
Just bleed them white.
Yeah. These Mujahideen are a diverse, fractured set of militia groups, but the main thing they had in common, they didn't like the Soviets. They wanted Islamic government, right? And the funding for this is not just all through the USA. There's from private individuals. It's from a couple other governments, but there was also this guy named Osama bin Laden, right? And
sentence, there was this guy named Osama bin Laden.
And like this is, this is the sort of like important gray zone thing, is that if you want to say the US government paid Osama bin Laden directly, that might be the case, but as far as I know, no one can prove it. Because part of Operation Cyclone was to set up a highly persistent, acephalous, deniable network of funding and organization through the Gulf states, which included a bunch of guys like Osama bin Laden. And the point of it was that you couldn't, like, if you were, say, the KGB, you couldn't easily cut off the funding to the guys who were shooting down Mi-24s because, there's just like, they don't all know each other and there's a bunch of them and they're all sort of spread out and nobody knows who all is getting whose money.
Yes. Bin Laden was from, a wealthy family, the Bin Ladens, who to this day control basically all the contracting in the Middle East, right? Saudi Bin Laden Group is a big contractor and they build everything, right? Bin Laden does a bunch of stuff in the Soviet-Afghan war. He funnels money to Mujahideen groups. He helps set up training camps. He pays for some people to come to those training camps. Sometime in the late 1980s, he sets up his own training camp, and he's like training fighters there, right?
Yeah, but he's a venture capitalist essentially. Yes. He's a facilitator. You bring stuff to him, and he makes it happen.
Exactly. And at this point, everyone's kind of. They're anti-Soviet. They're not anti-USA yet, right?
Yes.
Yeah. The Mujahideen sort of kick the Soviets out, right? The Taliban comes to power, right? And they're also funded by Pakistan, of course.
Of course.
But Bin Laden comes back to Saudi Arabia with a lot of power and prestige, and everything's sort of hunky-dory until relatively hunky-dory until the first Gulf War, right?
Right.
Oh yeah, this was the big breaking point, because like Bin Laden had theological differences with the Saudis before, particularly the sort of like court theologist of the Saudi government, a guy called Ibn bin Baz.
Yeah.
But during the Gulf War, the U.S. stationed troops in Saudi Arabia,
yes,
like Christian and Jewish troops, who brought religious symbols with them, which was another big point for bin Laden. Is like, you can't fucking bring a Bible to Saudi Arabia or a Torah.
It's also a very strong Third Amendment supporter.
And like, in order to wage war against, as much as Saddam Hussein was like a sort of like, to bin Laden, a sort of like degenerate Ba'athist kind of secularist, another Arab country, another Muslim country, as part of like sort of an imperial project.
Yeah, and Saddam had, hey, this is Justin in post-production. I just want to let you know that I meant bin Laden here. Back to the show. Saddam had like offered like his Mujahideen fighters to help defend Saudi Arabia, and King Fahd was like, nah, give me the Americans. I want the Americans.
Yeah. It's like sort of that combination of being like personally insulted and also like theologically insulted, and also like thinking that the House of Saud and their clerics are corrupt and morally degenerate and repulsive is not let's say it's not an unpopular opinion.
This is true.
You think it is?
So when bin Laden and people like him went, okay, well, these people are just useful idiots for the Americans. They're corrupt and they're awful and un-Islamic. That's not something which a lot of people would have raised an eyebrow to at the time.
Yeah,
sure.
and he's publicly critical of the Saudi regime, and eventually he gets kicked out of Saudi Arabia, right? And he winds up going to Afghanistan with some of his like closest followers, and then later to Sudan, right?
Yeah, which is where Robert Fisk writes the article "Anti-Soviet Warrior Puts His Army on the Road to Peace" about him.
Right.
I forgot to put that picture in here somewhere. He winds up getting stripped of his Saudi citizenship, and his family cuts off his allowance, which was $7 million a year.
Holy shit! Wow.
Yeah. And he winds up in Sudan as sort of a thorn in the side of the Sudanese government, because he's like, trying to, he's bored. He has nothing to do. He's out of money. He's trying to set up some terrorist training camps because, what else am I going to do? Right?
Yeah, stick with what you know.
You got to get the camp fees.
Yeah, exactly.
You think is there a fee structure for terrorist training camp? Think you have to like pay the counselors? Maybe you get like a camp crush on one of the other fighters.
I'm not quite certain how these things were funded at this point with bin Laden running out of money.
Nobody really is. It's an interesting moment. I mean, the safe answer is probably some more of that sort of cyclone network of funding that is like broadly sympathetic to him and like thinks that he's been wronged by the Saudis, but nobody actually knows.
Well, he winds up getting kicked out of Sudan and he's sent to Afghanistan, right?
Sent to or goes voluntarily?
He goes voluntarily to Afghanistan.
Because by this point, the Talibs have won the Afghan civil war.
Yeah.
Right.
Like Kabul has been bombarded into submission. Massoud is still like holding out in the partnership, but who cares about him? And so that they have an Islamic emirate, and he's welcomed more or less with open arms.
Yeah. And in the meantime, of course, during this period where bin Laden is bopping back and forth, the USA still had a residual force in Saudi Arabia, and of course, the Saudi Arabian government is cozying up to the U.S. more and more, which sort of makes bin Laden even more red, mad, and nude about the United States, right?
Yeah, it's a particular sort of territorialist thing that not just like Mecca or Medina, but like the whole Arabian Peninsula is sacred territory, and they are despoiling it.
Which is weird because he never got mad about American Arabian Oil Company before, I mean.
It's convenient how you have these revelations, isn't it?
The Saudis have been pretty cozy with the United States for a long time now. You get mad about this? Yeah. So
funny how that works.
He's sort of increasingly mad. He issues a fatwa, right? where he declares war on the United States in 1996, right?
Fuck you too, guy.
Yeah. He also does some, sort of casual terrorism in Yemen and Egypt, right? And the Yemeni one, that was sort of in the service of destroying Soviet-influenced groups that were trying to take control and set up a stable government there, right? They try to assassinate, I believe, what's his face? Was it Hosni Mubarak? No. The Egyptian president at the time. No, it was the other guy.
I suppose it could have been.
Wouldn't it be? No.
Hey, this is Justin in post-production here. Just wanted to let you know that it was, in fact, Hosni Mubarak. All right, back to the show.
The name's on the tip of my tongue. I just cannot remember.
I know, right?
Anyway, he does the USS Cole bombing.
Yes, and he blew up a bunch of U.S. embassies in 1998, right?
There was also, more importantly, his involvement in something called the Bojinka plot, which was something that a guy who brought to him, through Ramzi Youssef and Khalid Sheikh Mohammed, there was this plot to simultaneously blow up a dozen airliners in flight,
right?
Just over the US, and that didn't come off, obviously, but that was it moves from this idea of we can this knowledge sort of disseminates of airplanes are extremely vulnerable because until now, if you put a bomb on a plane, it just blows up easy. If you hijack a plane, everybody expects you to say, all right, take me to Cuba or take me to Algeria or take me to Lebanon. You get everybody off of the plane, you blow it up on the tarmac, nobody cares. And so this idea of using an airliner as a weapon in itself sort of germinates during the 90s.
Yeah, and it's surprising no one thought of that before, but I guess, planes
They're all
weren't...
busy going to Cuba.
You know who did? Tom Clancy.
Yes.
The most interesting and least examined figure of American military psychosis wrote a book called, I think, Debt of Honor, it was called, which is about the US going back to war with Japan, at the end of which a Japanese airliner pilot flies an airline like a 747 into the Capitol during the State of the Union address.
Good Lord.
So it's in thrillers at this point.
So, Bin Laden was just sitting at the airport reading the Tom Clancy paperback, and he's like, oh shit,
I could learn a thing or two.
Yeah, but at this point in sort of the long 90s, when everybody's like, oh, this is the end of history or whatever, you have this extremely sort of foreshadowing moment where Bin Laden is sort of like the Scarlet fucking Pimpernel at this point. He's just fucking around in Africa for the most part.
Yeah.
Just kind of doing shit, there's a plot here, a plot there. Sometimes they come off, sometimes they don't, but he's working is the thing.
Yeah,
he's grinding,
Yeah,
he's in the lab again, yo.
When he's after at this point Al-Qaeda blows up the embassies in 1998, the United States finally retaliated against the guy, right? They blew up some of his training camps, which they knew about. They also blew up a pharmaceutical plant in Sudan, which they thought was producing chemical weapons.
It wasn't.
But no, it was actually producing about half of all the medicine in Sudan. So
another proud day for U.S. intelligence.
I know.
Another proud day for U.S. air power.
And this is sort of...
at least this one wasn't a hospital. Who says we
among the people who are interested in this sort of political Islam, right? He sort of gains more power and prestige, right?
Everybody loves a winner.
I know, right?
And he's racking up these relatively small wins, but he's putting them on the board anyway.
Yeah. So, and of course, U.S. intelligence starts monitoring him a little more closely, to the point where around 1998, the CIA told Bill Clinton, hey, Al-Qaeda is going to hijack some planes and fly them into buildings.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And they didn't really do anything about that.
No.
Yeah.
No, they did not. And then Clinton leaves office, Bush comes into office, history is still ended.
Yes.
And these sort of memos, this is the looming tower bit, essentially, is like memos passed back and forth between the FBI and the CIA and like various other three-letter agencies. And the point that it comes to is that Bush should get, I think it's like actually in the president's daily briefing.
Yep.
The headline is Bin Laden determined to
attack U.S.
Determined to strike inside U.S.
Yes.
And that also goes like, if not unread, unregarded.
Yeah, I think there was also like a bunch of people using an excuse like, well, this is outside of our jurisdiction. We can't forward this to relevant agency, blah, blah, blah. We'll get tied up in legal crap,
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's part of it is the willful, basically, I don't know, willful ignorance is the term, but like choosing not to do your job is.
Yeah, and like especially at this point, especially pre 9/11, the CIA is not yet the organization that it would become of like sort of like zero dark 30 guys. It's sort of this like shirt and tie Mormon freak shows who have spent the entire Cold War like smearing nerve gas on people's door handles, and so they don't want to fucking tell the FBI anything, particularly anything that implicates either their own sources or their own, activities, whether that's like the foundation of this sort of network of finances or like having used it for operational purposes in the interim.
Yeah, in the meantime, the FBI is also highly unfamiliar with arresting anyone for like terrorism who they didn't personally radicalize.
Yeah, we've also had I forgot to mention this because I should have done because I mentioned Ramzi Youssef. We've also had the first World Trade Center bombing in 1993 at this point, and that's another one of those sort of like successes that like is a sort of, it reflects better on ultimately on Bin Laden, but also on Khalid Sheikh Mohammed. And so that's, that sort of sets the plan for like, not only are we going to like maybe use airliners as weapons, but we're also going to like attack symbolic, like landmark, high impact targets within the United States.
Yes. So here's a guy.
Found a guy. Or I wish the FBI had. But,
yes.
Alas and alack, right.
So this is Hani Salah Hassan Henjor. I assume
absolutely
I produced none of that correctly.
Sorry, Roz, I wouldn't have done any better.
He was from Saudi Arabia, and he was a failed airline pilot, right? He had applied unsuccessfully for airline jobs at Saudi Arabian Airlines, which is now called Saudia, right? In the early 1990s, the airline turned him down. They suggested he go to the United States to obtain a commercial pilot's license there, which he did. Yeah. Well,
that's an actual question. Why us?
It's more prestigious. Like I think the thing is, this is not just common to Saudi Arabia or Arab countries, but like a lot of the 9/11 hijackers are sort of like upper middle class fail sons,
right?
Who can't really like this is like succeed at like things like engineering or medicine or whatever, and being an airline pilot for your country's like flag carrier is absolutely a job in that mold. It's not actually about like wanting to fly or whatever. It's like it's a like secure
a job of prestige.
Exactly. It's a good job. It's like a job that somebody ideally with connections can like get you, and then you just you have sort of a career for life off of this.
Okay.
Unless you're a wildly incompetent pilot.
I was about to say, yeah, you figure this guy maybe could have worked his way up through like a regional airline, but he doesn't do that, right? You can fly for one of those airlines that later merged into Delta, like, I don't know. I forget what like the Appalachian Airlines was, but
it's like Northeast or something like that. Yeah.
The airline turned him down, but they said, go to USA, get a commercial pilot's license, come back here, maybe we'll hire you, right? So he tries this in 1995, right? Over the next several years, he sort of bounced between several flight schools. He actually did receive an FAA commercial pilot certificate in 1999. And after that, he came back to Saudi Arabia and was again turned down by the airline.
Yeah, and up until this point, you feel bad for the guy. Like, he's not a good pilot. And it's like he's been set on this course but by in particular a society that's pretty much like, oh, we just decide what we think your career should be.
Yes.
And he can't fucking do it, and you feel a little bit bad.
Yeah, and like in his frustration, he of course turns to Islamism, right?
Of course.
Starts reading religious texts, listening to cassette tapes of various radical imams, right? He's reading zines, he's listening to podcasts.
Yeah, and again, like pretty much all of the 9/11 hijackers are like this. Like Siad Jarrah's a little bit older, but like most of the others are just kind of like fail sons, basically.
Right.
Yeah. And so he told his family he was going to go look for work in the United Arab Emirates, but probably actually went to go to an Al-Qaeda training camp in Afghanistan, right?
Yeah, insanely easy to do at this point.
Right. Oh, yeah. It seems like they just, they're just processing people at the door. Just show up, tell them what your skills are.
I'm here for the terrorism camp.
Well, like, bear in mind, at this point, the Taliban are the internationally recognized government of Afghanistan. Mm-hmm. So nobody's like able to really stop them from letting guys in or hosting terrorist training camps for that matter. But also, nobody's tracking this shit. This is all like, worked out after the fact.
Yeah, it's kind of like, I didn't know it got this bad. My God. So, all right, he's an Al-Qaeda guy now, right? In about September 2000, Hanjour arrives in the United States. He meets his fellow hijackers who are
Nawaf al-Hazmi and Khalid al-Mihdar.
Thank you.
Midzar? Well, anyway.
Thanks, Alice.
They're both Saudi Arabian, right? And they sort of bop around the United States for a while. They go to San Diego. They go to Mesa, Arizona. They go to Patterson, New Jersey, Falls Church, Virginia, right? Hanjour is like studying
wow,
it.
What
like,
an itinerary.
I know, right?
Oh, the 9/11 hijackers in America is like a fascinating period of time.
Interesting.
I put this in the notes later, but I think it was Siad Jarrah who, like, with a couple of others, went to get self-defense training from a Florida martial artist called Bert Rodriguez. They just had some really fucking weird times. Spent a lot of money on strippers and alcohol.
I'm imagining like a buddy comedy about these guys.
I felt really guilty thinking it, but that's where my mind went too.
You want to feel weird? Bert Rodriguez wrote a book about how to I think it's called like Create Courage, and the cover is 9/11, which is weird for a guy who accidentally trained some of the 9/11 hijackers.
Listen, you got to market yourself.
You do what you got to do, right?
You got to look up this guy Bert Rodriguez. He looks like a sort of a bald Danny Trejo.
He can truly look at that and say, yes, I helped with that.
Teamwork makes the dream work.
Yes. And our boy Hanjour was studying at like half a dozen flight academies in this time. He never completes more than a few simulator sessions at any one place, though. Now, notably, one of those was at Essex County Airport from an academy called Caldwell Flight Academy.
Oh, my bad, guys. Sorry.
Hey.
Listen, when he said he didn't want to know how to land, I thought he would just had anxiety. I mean,
I get the feeling this guy actually probably did know how to land the plane.
I think he's actually the best trained, or at least most trained pilot of any of the hijackers.
And we'll see that in a second. So they also go do strength training at Gold's Gym, which I thought was funny because that's also where my dad goes. They got another two guys who are also both Saudis. They come in late, into like this buddy comedy film, right? And they go to Dulles Airport on the morning of September 11th, right?
Yeah. Actually, the other two guys kind of show how extensively the whole thing was planned, which is you had, they were divided up into teams. Like it was a group of 20 hijackers divided up into teams per flight. And then you would have essentially like 2 or 3 guys who would be like seizing the cockpit and would be like flying the plane, and then the other guys who joined them later were just like large dudes who were there for crowd control. So it's like, you know, it and I don't know, it sort of speaks to quite involved planning, not necessarily even by bin Laden, but by, you know, maybe Mohammed Atta, maybe Khalid Sheikh Mohammed, I don't know, but
yeah. So they all go to Dulles Airport on the morning of September 11th, right? And they all get stopped at security and put through secondary screening, but they let them through.
I thought it's like, but that was designed to make us safer.
Well,
I can't believe it didn't work.
They all had utility knives on them, which security found. But that was perfectly legal to carry on the plane back then.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah.
Sure. Yeah.
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 So they get on American Airlines Flight 77, which was a Boeing 757 destined for Los Angeles, right? Okay. And this was a relatively empty flight. It was 58 passengers and crew when the plane would usually have, if it were full, it would have 188 passengers, right? They took off, headed west, and just about around Parkersburg, West Virginia, right? Just past that, the hijacking occurs, right?
Right.
Now, unlike Flight 93, where we have shitloads of information about it for some reason, which was all used for jingoist propaganda for years afterwards, right? There were only like 2 phone calls made from Flight 77. There was a flight attendant who said everyone had been herded to the back of the plane by hijackers, and Barbara Olson, who called her husband, who was U.S. Solicitor General Theodore Olson, who said the plane was hijacked and the hijackers had box cutters, and she was cut off mid-call, right? Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, that's probably why you have fewer phone calls. It's like the stricter, more aggressive crowd control.
Better.
Because in Flight 93, I think they just like had them stay in their seats,
right?
Which, you know, led to them losing control of the plane.
That'll do it, yeah.
Not to interrupt the solemnity of the move, but I have to use the bathroom. I'll be right back.
Okay. I am also going to take the opportunity to use the bathroom then.
Oh, no. Fuck. Okay. Well, okay, I'm helming this by my own. Fine.
Excellent.
I'm going to talk about the 2 reasons why a 9/11-like attack cannot happen again. Reason number 1, reinforced cockpit doors were not a thing at this point. It was just like a regular door. You could break it down very easily. Reason number 2, people had different expectations of what a hijacking was. Like I said earlier, at this point, like on September 11th, if you are on a plane that gets hijacked, the way you expect that experience to go is you are now in a hostage situation, right? And like they fly the plane somewhere, and either they get where they want to go and then they let you go, or, you know, like maybe they kill you, or they like land the plane somewhere and then try to like either negotiate for your release and the plane gets like stormed or whatever, but you're not expecting like, oh, this is an instant death sentence and like, you know, I have to do anything I can to prevent it. Whereas now that mindset's totally changed, and you get that thing of like people who are like disturbed or whatever will like, I don't know, make a grab for a cockpit door they can't possibly open. I'm just talking about how you can't hijack a plane anymore.
Right.
Because like, okay, you can't get into the cockpit anyway, but if you try, the entirety of the plane will like sit on you, and you might die of positional asphyxia. If you don't, then the plane lands somewhere and you get the most arrested anyone's ever been. But it wasn't like that then.
Right.
It wasn't like,
we were talking about that in the country music episode, the sort of how since 9/11 there's just been this sort of slow, long 20-year psychosis.
Yeah. But that's why Flight 93 is different, is because like it was exceptional in that way, because like at least some of the passengers there sort of understood that to be a life or death type situation, rather than let's, you know, stay calm and see how this plays out.
I'm back.
Hi.
Hello. Okay. So this hijacking actually occurred slightly after the first plane, Flight 11, had hit the World Trade Center, right? But the hijackers turned off the transponder almost immediately, right? Which prevented the plane from being easily tracked, right?
Almost wouldn't have mattered the extent to like the shambles which like NORAD was in at this point.
Oh, it gets worse. So
good.
after they turned the transponder off, that's when they turned the plane around, right? So, and they set the autopilot for Washington, D.C. So actually I guess they make it out to E, and then they, from there, they engage autopilot, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So meanwhile, at ground control in Indianapolis, which have been tracking this plane before, they don't know anything's happened yet, right? Other than this plane has dropped off the radar, they haven't heard that 9/11 is happening, right?
Yeah, and there isn't really a response for this. Like, you can scramble fighter jets, which is like eventually done, but
Yes.
like there isn't sort of a protocol in place that's like, oh, this is like, you know, a plane that has been hijacked and therefore you're going to shoot it down or whatever.
They assumed the plane had crashed, right? And they started, you know, alerting local law enforcement, hey, be on the lookout for a plane crash site somewhere around here, right?
Sure.
And it wasn't until, so the hijacking started at 8:54. The Indianapolis Control Center didn't know about 9/11 until 9:21.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
And the first plane hits the towers at what, 8:43, 8:48?
8:54.
8:54, thank you.
So they tried to relay information to other control centers about Flight 77, which had disappeared, right? And somehow it wound up being the Boston Control Center who coordinated with the Northeast Air Defense Sector of NORAD, right? And they got Flight 77 confused with Flight 11, which had already crashed into the World Trade Center, right?
Yeah, and that again is like part of the planning of like the Bojinka plot too, to a certain extent, as you try and like saturate people with too much information to process at once.
Yes.
Like it doesn't make sense for this to be something that happens to multiple planes almost simultaneously.
Right. Yeah. So NEADS, right, is Northeast Air Defense Sector. They started searching for another plane headed towards Washington, D.C., and they were looking for it in New Jersey, right? Meanwhile, Flight 77 was flying through the National Radio Quiet Zone.
Of course it was.
Yes. Which has a bunch of radio telescopes, right? It's a big area in Virginia and West Virginia and a little bit of Maryland. Radio transmissions are restricted, right? And they got some secret squirrel military shit, but they just weren't looking for planes here, right? They only had a little bit of time to look for it. So the NEADS actually scrambled the fighters pretty soon after they found out this was going on, around 9:23, to go intercept Flight 11 or Flight 77, which they thought was Flight 11, right? Over Baltimore.
All right.
Yeah. So doing great. Flight 77 wasn't detected again until it was almost at Dulles Airport at like 9:32, right?
Oh, fuck. Okay.
So NEADS learns that Flight 77 had been hijacked right around this time, sort of by accident. They find out Flight 77 exists. I think someone got in contact from the Indianapolis FAA Control Center and mentioned Flight 77, and they're like, Flight 77? We haven't heard about a Flight 77. What's going on? It's like, that's the one that got hijacked. What have you been doing?
Go Colts.
Yeah. Yes, they're deploying the fighters to go bring the Colts back to Baltimore.
Well, at least it'll make my dad happy.
Mm-hmm. Air traffic control at both Dulles and National Airport also had detected the flight at this point. And they asked the crew of a C-130H, which had just left, I think, one of the air bases in the area, to get a visual on the unidentified airplane. And the pilot of that plane said, well, it sure looks like a American Airlines 757.
Thanks, guy.
Yeah.
Well, appreciate you, bud.
Yeah. All right. So now we have to talk about the turn.
Oh, boy.
Oh, Jesus.
Smoking on that shit that made Hani Hanjour pull off a perfect 330-degree turn and descend 2,200 feet.
I was about to say, this is a hell of an aerial maneuver right here, right? And this is definitely one of the things that tends to fuel the conspiracy theories. Because this is not the world's easiest maneuver right here. I, for one, think it was a fluke.
Yeah, well,
you only need to get lucky once.
This is the thing, right? Like,
beginner's
when
luck.
sometimes things do just come off, right?
Yeah.
They just work. And also, Hani Hanjour was also like, okay, every flight school he went to was like, he's a terrible pilot. But as far as I know, he was also the like longest and most flight trained of any of the hijackers.
Yeah.
And this was also like, you have to bear in mind, this was like his big event. This was his martyrdom as far as he was concerned. And so like, if ever there was a time to like get it right for him, it would have been this one. This wasn't something that he was idly doing. So it came good, as it were.
And this is one of the, so, at 9:29, Hanjour turns off the autopilot to begin to maneuver to, whack into the Pentagon, right? He banks hard to the right. He goes through a 330-degree turn, right around here, right centered on Cameron Run Park right over here, which is this weird municipal water park in Alexandria. It's kind of cool that it's like a municipal water park as opposed to a private operation. At least I think. It's not very common. Anyway, he descends 2,200 feet through this curve. He comes down low over I-395. He advances the throttle to maximum. He clips some telephone poles, and he smashes the plane into the Pentagon, right?
Yeah, and again, that's another thing that people like to make a lot of, because he hits it like dead on, right?
Right.
Like almost horizontally,
right?
And the idea is that like the Pentagon is a low building. And like it was over a grass lawn, and he should have like either come in too low or like come in too high and missed it. To which it's a 5-story building. Like, okay, seeing it from the air or whatever, sure, but like he lined himself up for it.
He does kind of not hit it at like the optimal point. I mean, he sort of hits like the ground a couple feet in front of it. Yeah, and he's like,
it's like with the telephone poles. Like if he hit stuff before it, he's still going to hit the building because it's a whole airliner.
One of the wings, I believe, hits the ground right before the fuselage plunges into the granite facade. The
only footage of this is from a gas station camera, which gets about 3 frames of it.
Yeah,
it's like one shot every second, and again, that makes a lot of people, or at least made a lot of people, it made your roommate who smoked too much weed in like 2005 make you watch a bunch of really grainy footage and go, yo, that looks like a missile to me, dude. You can see the fins there or whatever.
Yeah. At this point, the C-130H pilot we mentioned before radios National Airport Tower to say, looks like the plane crashed into the Pentagon, sir.
That's why we pay you, bud.
And meanwhile, the interceptors were looking for Flight 11 in New Jersey.
Flight 11, which is at this point melting through the fucking sky lobby of the North Tower.
Yes, exactly. So they kind of fucked this one up.
Yeah, kind of dropped the ball on this one, guys. If I'm honest.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. They got Amy McGrath out there to shoot down 93, so 1 out of 4 ain't bad. Now, one of the things we talked about last year on our annual 9/11 episode, we talked about the World Trade Centers, and on the World Trade Centers, you saw a large like impact that was vaguely plane shaped, right? There's big holes where the wings impacted the building. You don't see this on the Pentagon, right? So we got to ask, what happened here, right?
Well, he sheared one of the wings off on the lawn, which stops you from getting the perfect Looney Tunes silhouette.
This is true. But, the World Trade Center is clad in, many exceptionally slim columns right on the exterior, lots of light aluminum facade panels. The Pentagon is a conventional, heavy reinforced concrete frame building, overbuilt 1940s style with big, heavy limestone panels on the exterior. This in and of itself is not enough to prevent the Looney Tunes style plane outline, though, right? But this area had just been renovated, right? The renovation started after the Oklahoma City bombing in order to prevent, a similar thing from happening where the whole facade is ripped off, right?
Yeah. Same thing by all new federal buildings and U.S. embassies abroad have a shitload of setback. Like you'll see a bunch of like heavy concrete planters or like overt barriers, but also it's across, like 150-foot lawn away from you.
But because this section was also near the helipad, it was actually designed to withstand, a helicopter impact, right? So this renovation, which had started in 1993 and which was due to finish up in 5 days after 9/11, right, involved reinforcing the facade of the Pentagon, this side of the Pentagon, really, with a very, very aggressive blast-resistant facade system. It was 2 feet thick, right? It included a layer of, a grid of steel beams for blast resistance and a Kevlar layer, right? Sort of similar to if you're ever doing like blasting rock in a occupied area, you put down a heavy Kevlar blanket in order to prevent the blast from, releasing debris into the atmosphere or, all that sort of stuff. They basically had blast resistant, Kevlar blankets in the entire facade system here. And
of course, this is the kind of thing that also drives conspiracy theorists wild, because it's like, so he just happened to attack the one part of the building that was like not going to do any huge structural damage to it or whatever. And it's like, yeah, actually.
Yeah, that makes sense when I'm trying to do a false flag, is I'm going to try and not do very much damage. So, the windows were also blast resistant. They were like 2-inch thick safety glass, right? You can see a lot of them remained intact. Hensher did great with that turn, but he picked a really bad spot to attack the building, right? And the parts of the plane that did penetrate the facade were like the fuselage and the engines, right? But if you think about this in terms of like the cross section of material that hits the building, right? The fuselage goes in the building, it starts disintegrating, and that as it disintegrates, it's imparting more energy into the building, which is causing more destruction. So the fuselage can penetrate through the wings, the tail, these other, what's the word? Appendages
like
of the plane.
Flight surfaces, yeah.
Flight surfaces, they just sort of hit the front of the building and they disintegrate, right?
But it also helps that the wings are full of fuel, which just explodes immediately.
This is true. I imagine that was probably the fire was not so severe to start out with, just because all of that jet fuel just boom immediately, right?
Yeah, and it's not like the World Trade Center where it like is sort of like cast suddenly through the whole like footprint of the building. It's mostly sort of, it hits the outside.
It just sort of splashes back down on fire. Yeah. Most of the plane debris that was recovered was from the tail section of the plane. I think somehow the nose cone was also recovered. And then some bits and bobs we'll talk about later. One of the side effects of this was, because of this reinforcement, a lot of people were able to get out of these offices very quick.
I think it only killed a few people on impact directly.
It was like
188 total, I think.
Yeah, 184 total.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. And this photo is from just around
23,000 people work here.
Yes.
Yeah. Assuming it's at capacity.
This photo is from around 30 minutes after impact, actually. Firefighters got on scene really quickly. You can see up here, the cornice up here is starting to sag. This is right around when they pulled all the firefighters out. The building collapsed shortly after they pulled all the firefighters out. Initially, workers in the building started pulling people out of the building. A lot of people could get out under their own power. But the fire department shooed everyone away once they showed up there, because we have rescue training, right?
Right.
So the impact was at, what is it, 9:34ish? I want to say.
Yeah.
The building collapsed at 10:10, right? And
so that's 36 minutes.
36 minutes, yeah. And only at that point did the upper floors catch fire.
Wow.
Yeah.
This thing's really fucking isolated.
Very, very well built building. You couldn't have picked a worse building to try and attack with a plane. So, the one thing that did happen at this point, the roof was held up with big wooden support beams. So the roof caught fire and started spreading along the building. They actually had to control that by doing fire breaks. They couldn't really
the finest firefighting technique of the 17th
century. They do love to do it, as we know.
And the fire wasn't fully contained until 6 p.m. the following day.
Wow.
Yeah. This is where you can sort of see those big Kevlar panels, right? You can see some of the big beams there. You can see how the building is sort of fallen down, but it's draped like a curtain.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Right. The facade is surprisingly intact for what's happened to it. So this killed about 100. This killed 188 people, including, of course, everyone on Flight 77.
If you believe things you read on Twitter, it like perfectly took out all of the DoD's records of Operation Cyclone or whatever, which it didn't.
Mm-hmm.
Probably not. Also, some guys would still just know about it. Like,
I was about to say, yeah.
That's the thing with these, is that like they don't need like more than a memo.
Destroyed a bunch of art and books because it hit the U.S. Army's library.
Oh, that's a shame.
Oops.
Yeah, they lost a couple of like big oil paintings.
And the plane mostly did damage to the outer E-wing, right? Which is where all the generals are. It did penetrate slightly into the C-wing, or as far as the C-wing, right? At this point, they're trying to do recovery. They found the important pieces of the plane, the flight data recorder and the cockpit voice recorder. The flight data recorder was good. The cockpit voice recorder had fused into a solid block of plastic.
Oh, shit.
They also found one of the hijacker's driver's licenses in the parking lot.
Again, another classic move that like gets people very, very weird. Is like, the FBI just found a couple of passports on the street outside the World Trade Center. They found a driver's license here. It's like,
stuff happens.
It's
in
debris.
Massive plane crashes.
It's debris.
It's debris, right?
Yeah, they presumably found a lot of other shit that they're not all cataloging, but this is just one of the things that happens when you throw an airliner's worth of people into Cuisinart, essentially.
Yeah, I always thought one of the weird ones was I think they found a piece of one of the planes that hit the World Trade Center, like a big piece, like an aileron or something, in like 2011, 2012, maybe later than that. It had fallen between a pair of buildings which had 8 inches of space between them.
Huh.
Yeah.
Definitely an inside job.
Well, no, it has that air of like history that happens with like huge events, right? Same with the JFK assassination, where like if you take any sort of event, there's always going to be a bunch of insane seeming coincidences about anything, because there's just like how life works. There's always a shitload of like variables, and some of them are going to line up, but because it feels like portentous, right? You assign more meaning to these things than perhaps they have.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
And so
the idea of sort of creating order out of nothing, because I think people can't handle the idea that things just happen.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? That sometimes stuff just goes wrong. And obviously this wasn't random chance. It's a very well-planned operation.
No, but
to be honest,
contains a lot of random elements, just because everything does, like where that guy's driver's license ends up.
Right. Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
Here's some of the recovery operation afterwards. You can see a big part of the buildings come down. It's the E-ring, the D-wing.
Tell me the hot dog hut was okay.
Oh yeah, it didn't make it that far. It only made it as far as C-wing.
They replaced the hot dog hut.
Throw an anti-aircraft battery on top of it.
in 2006, they replaced the hot dog hut.
What's there now?
Another hot dog hut.
Thank God.
Okay, thank God.
And a new eating facility, as how the Air Force described it at the time.
We're all God's children at the hot dog hut.
Yeah. And
Incidentally, if you want to get really like eye emoji about this, the old hot dog stand had a big carved wooden owl on top of it, which they actually kept and placed on the new hot dog stand. So just if you wanted to get a little bit of like Bohemian Grove vibes.
You can see here, this is the plane poked when it came out the other side of the sea wing, right? Which is kind of
wow,
tiny and pathetic.
Yeah. Just kind of like peters out in that courtyard.
Yeah, exactly. In an interior courtyard, even. Kind of like, well, you tried.
This is a hell of a well-built building.
Yes, it's a very, very heavily built building. Now, in 2001, when this had occurred, they were trying to eventually do a comprehensive renovation on it because, as well built as it was structurally, every building system was failing.
Okay.
The heat, the lights, the electricity.
Not the asbestos. The asbestos was working great.
The asbestos was working great. It was full of asbestos at this point.
Yeah.
The building was absolutely chock full of asbestos. Everyone who was doing work on this building in the recovery effort all got exposed to shitloads of asbestos. So, it was not like other parts of 9/11, not great for your health to be working on the recovery effort. You can see here's one of the shredded piece of plane they recovered. Because again, this plane just disintegrated on impact. There was not.
Oh yeah, it's the C from American, huh?
Yeah, it's probably came off the tail or something. Or no, the tail of an American Airlines plane just says AA on it. So I guess that's from the side.
It'd be like, from the side, yeah.
And you can see sort of a diagram of how this hit the first floor, right?
Like a shotgun blast.
Yes, exactly. Just straight through. Well, every one of these circles is where they recovered a body. Or I think maybe some of them are casualties and not bodies, but I'm not sure which ones. And one of the big conspiracies is, I went through the Defense Intelligence Agency offices, right? You can see it just sort of clipped it on the side.
Yeah. Perfectly taking out the filing cabinet in which a single manila folder was locked up, in which was written "Bush did 9/11"
right,
on like 9/10.
That's pretty good accuracy. That Hanjor got that from. He started that run in West Virginia and hit that filing cabinet.
Also, they could just start redoing the conspiracies on September 12th.
Yeah.
Good point. Yeah.
Got to move to a different office.
Yeah, exactly. So this whole section here basically collapsed. And they had to trash that part of the building. And they started rebuilding like instantly.
The fucking let's roll sign.
Countdown counter here. Yeah, they gave the contract to the people who had just finished doing the renovation to rebuild that whole section of the Pentagon.
So they're behind it.
Yeah,
generate more business.
They want more business. Yeah, Facina up here, I assume, is Italian for Saudi bin Laden Group.
Investigate asbestos removal contractors.
Yes,
in like DC Nova.
So after the dust had settled, they cleared everything out. They had to rebuild this part of the Pentagon, right? It took exactly 1 year, right? The renovated section opened September 11th, 2002. Right.
I was going to ask what the countdown
was. Yeah, they can get things done fast when they want to, right?
Yeah.
This was followed by like a complete gut renovation of the rest of the Pentagon. Lots of security improvements. They moved the Richmond Highway, and they wound up having to buy out essentially all the office space in Crystal City to move the Pentagon people into while they renovated this, right? Including running the Pentagon's internal systems under the ground into the Crystal City office buildings temporarily.
Which is genuinely fairly impressive. But
Yes.
Yeah. Just a guy with a backhoe just digging the big pipe that the imperialism runs through.
Yeah, exactly.
You got to have it. Is the thing.
So, this was, and once they finished the renovation, I think like 10, 15 years later, of course, they vacated Crystal City, which, then knowing that because so much office space was suddenly vacant, it became the cheapest place to rent an office in the Washington, D.C. era. And, small domino, United States occupies or adds forces to Saudi Arabia. Large domino, Amazon relocates to Crystal City.
Well, like the good news is that post 9/11, having successfully pinned it on Saddam Hussein, a guy who bin Laden hated, the United States managed to vastly expand its security apparatus, which meant that there are a lot of new, arms of that security and intelligence apparatus that needed housing, such as Amazon.com.
Yeah, and then there was, and they put up a couple big Department of Defense buildings since then in the area. There's this one absolute monstrosity right by Interstate 395. I remember watching go up when I was in high school, and I was like, Jesus Christ, this is the biggest, tallest building I've ever seen. I mean, it was like 17 stories, but it was massive.
Isn't the NRO out there too? The satellite guys?
I think everything.
They're in like Chantilly.
Chantilly, right?
Yeah.
This was Shirleyville, if I recall correctly.
Wow.
Just massive expansion of the security state out here, and it's just led to more and more construction of Department of Defense and Department of Defense related buildings ever since. And the Pentagon.
It's weird how this stuff never gets smaller.
Exactly. And
it's
the Pentagon,
a ratchet.
but the good news is the Pentagon is asbestos free now.
Oh, good.
Yeah.
It's important to have a healthy war machine.
Mm-hmm. So now we have to get to the part that everyone's been waiting for. The conspiracy theories. And there's lots of like conspiracy theories about like 9/11 that are popular in a lot of leftist circles. Right. And, there's sort of the vaguely plausible stuff like, you talk interesting stuff like, well, there sure were a lot of airline stock shorts right before 9/11.
That's on the like more plausible end. Is like a bunch of finance guys in the Middle East could have had advanced knowledge. Interesting.
Yeah, that sounds about right to me.
Yeah. It's like like a Saudi guy's cousin's cousin got a wink and a nod. Yeah, sure.
They're doing some insider trading on terrorism. Yeah.
Yeah, to like stuff that is coincidental but seems incriminating, like the Northeast Air Defense Sector doing a fucking like preparedness drill that day.
Yeah.
So they had to like
For all the fucking good it did.
Yeah. So like all the phone calls between anybody is like, is this real or is this like an exercise?
No, it's real. Or Amy McGrath shooting down Flight 93. And then there's like the deliberate intelligence failure stuff, which, is like, well, did Bush really do 9/11? Was Clinton involved in doing 9/11, right?
No, he just took advantage of the situation.
Yeah. Although there is one thing, which is that the most popular conspiracy theory and the most successful conspiracy theory about 9/11, because it is a conspiracy theory, is that Iraq was involved in the planning or execution of 9/11.
That is a good point, yes.
But because that was a conspiracy theory that was advanced by the president and by members of Congress, that's not a conspiracy theory. That was like a very serious narrative that everyone needed to take seriously.
Yes.
That's a very good point.
And then there's like the conspiracies that, I think are harmful, which because they're not correct. And I think that they're depressing, right? And that's stuff like Bush put bombs in the towers. And of course, the fucking missile conspiracy, right?
Yo, have you seen this extremely grainy 3 frames of footage? Because this shit looked like a missile to me.
Right?
Doesn't that look like a tip, bro?
I'm going to say this. Those three frames contain neither a missile nor a plane, right? So inconclusive.
It's just a really big bird moth, man.
So a lot of people still think that, rather than a guy flying the plane into the building, right, there was a much, much more complex and insidious plan involving the plane being disappeared into some kind of black site. And then, I don't know, they go and shoot all the passengers and crew. And then the military flew a missile into the building, right?
Yeah.
Which seems a lot more difficult to me.
It seems like that doesn't seem like it's worth the effort.
Yeah. And this is sort of because of the aforementioned lack of damage to the facade, the small hole in the building, and the lack of plane debris in all the pictures, right? And of course, the security footage doesn't really clearly show any kind of vehicle, right?
Yeah, it's like, why would you have this attack that's very ineffective against like a military target, and then ones that are very, very effective against civilian targets? And it's like, well, because nobody had actually flown an airliner into a building before this on purpose.
Yes.
And so nobody really knew how it worked or if it would like work well.
Another popular theory is that the military flew like a drone into the building, right?
They don't have drones that good then.
Yeah, and again,
don't even really have drones that good now.
Yeah, they also made a plane disappear with all its passengers, but they also
they killed the Solicitor General's wife.
Yeah,
because
and then they put fake plane debris in the building, as opposed to just flying the plane into the building.
No one would notice, right?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. So, and the people on the Jefferson Davis freeway or whatever who saw the plane go over them,
I believe that was Washington Boulevard. Jeff Davis Parkway was on the other side of the building.
Yeah, well, like anybody who saw the plane come in, they're the CIA.
And anecdotally, my Cub Scout den leader at the time was in the Pentagon when this happened. And he didn't
doing
know
9/11.
Yeah, he was on the other side of the building and didn't know anything had happened for 30 minutes.
It's a big building.
It's a big building, yeah.
It's a big building.
Obviously, I don't think you can fully refute the conspiracy theory by talking about it, right? People are going to believe what they believe, right?
Right.
I think it is worth noting the lack of explosion damage in the building that would arise from a missile hitting it, right?
Right.
You would expect that facade, rather than staying largely intact, right? The missile goes in the building and explodes, and then the facade falls outwards.
Yeah, because that's what it's designed to do. And also, like, if it's the US government doing this, then they know what the fucking building is like, right?
This is true, yes.
One of the things that really bothers me, sort of anecdotally, is this almost like gospel on part of the left that it was like an inside job.
Yeah.
And if you sort of believe more or less the official narrative, you're like a mark. And no, man, it was just terrorists doing terrorist stuff that the United States government then took advantage of to launch 2 wars and increase the size of the surveillance state and military state, which they were going to do anyway, maybe just a little slower.
Yeah, I think one of the depressing things about this is if you believe ideas like there was a missile, Bush put bombs in the towers, right? There's sort of this incredible state capacity that the United States has in order to like coordinate such a thing, which involves thousands and thousands of people who aren't all CIA agents, right?
Right. Some of them are just going to work.
Yeah, and keep it a secret somehow, right?
But also not that secret, because you and your friends know about it, and a guy with a silenced pistol hasn't killed you yet.
Exactly. Right. And I think if there's any kind of like 9/11 was an inside job conspiracy that's like plausible, right? It would have to involve like 12 people at most, right? One of whom is bin Laden, and 2 of whom are Dick Cheney and H.W. Bush.
Yeah, they got him in the room and they were like, yeah, for old time's sake.
Yeah, you want to do 9/11? Bin Laden's like, what's 9/11? Oh, you'll know.
Well, the important news is that we did compromise Osama bin Laden to a permanent end. So justice has been done at only the small cost of 20 years of war in Afghanistan and also invading and occupying
plus human lives.
Iraq for no real reason.
Yes.
Yeah. We did it, America.
But I don't know if this is like, people want to make this, a part of a false flag strategy attention, domestic gladio thing. I just don't think so. I think this is just something the state took advantage of rather than something the state orchestrated intentionally. Right. I mean, they did kind of orchestrate it unintentionally, but
yes.
Yeah, that's what I have to say about the conspiracy theories. I just don't think they're plausible, and I don't think they're necessary to like understand state power or like the military industrial complex. It's just not. It's too big. It's too like it's exciting and interesting evil as opposed to banal evil, which is the usual kind.
Yeah, well, like the depressing thing, and the thing that really gets me is that, like, okay, if 9/11 had never happened, or like if it had been thwarted, right? Say, I don't know, you go back in a time machine and you tip off the FBI, and the FBI believe you, and all 20 guys get arrested at the airport, right? The thing that really depresses me is that, like, had 9/11 not happened or had it not succeeded, I think the United States would have invaded Iraq anyway.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, I believe so. W wanted a war. And one of the things, actually, this is another, I'm just settling my grievances here, is that, the war was for oil. It's like, it's actually a lot less complicated than that. W wanted a war. Yeah. There's a man ruled by his ego who saw a guy that, quote, tried to kill my daddy, and just, he was going to get a war one way or the other. I mean, the Pentagon there's memos and shit that make that very clear.
Yeah, like, that's the one thing that you actually can be very reductive about is, like, no, they invaded Iraq because they wanted to. They knew that they were lying to do it, but they wanted to do it, so they did.
Yep.
What are we going to talk about for the third 9/11 episode?
Building
9/11 2022. Oh,
Building 7. Building 7. Building 7.
It gets worse every time you chant it, man.
Why do you have that big foam finger that says Building 7?
So
where did you get that?
Someone make one of those and send it to me.
No.
Oh, Ross, I have so many gifts from the P.O. box for you the next time I see you, baby boy. I'm tired of this shit all living in my room, so you're going to get some of it.
Mail me a care package.
Yes.
All right.
Yes.
I got to. Send me your address.
All right. So, if that's everything we got,
I think that's it. I think we never forget it.
Never forget that the Pentagon suffered partial damage on 9/11.
That's right.
And obviously a lot of people were killed as well. Yeah.
I'll tell you what, though, aside from flying an airliner full of like normal people into it, it's a hell of a lot more of a justifiable target than anything else that Al-Qaeda did on 9/11, and also a lot of things that the US destroyed in the wars since.
Yes. It was kind of a military target, at least. Yeah. Well, not kind of a military target, definitely a military target. Anyway, so we have a segment on this podcast called Safety Third.
Shake hands with danger.
Hello.
I like this picture.
Yes.
Hello.
In Rod we trust.
Yes, in Rod we trust. Back when I studied physics at my old university, the physics department, as well as nearby institutes, had a number of issues that would fit here perfectly, though a lot of them were not exactly engineering problems. Now, this is a story mostly from older generations of students, right? We had an old professor emeritus who was an accomplished nuclear physicist that used to be a professor to the oldest other professors at the time, right? And was much more lively than any of them, right? We considered his continued existence to be a piece of anecdotal evidence of radiation hormesis, right? That's the theory
All
that
right.
low doses of radiation are actually good for you. Right. Back when he was retiring from teaching students near the end of his final teaching block, he collapsed due to a lung problem and was taken to the hospital where they x-rayed him to maybe figure out a cause. Due to the result of the x-ray being unbelievable, the technicians checked their machine and tried again. Then they dismantled the machine, checked it, saw that it should work, and then tried again. After the third time, they finally confronted him. "We have a problem with the machine," they said. "You appear to be transparent." He replied, "Oh, I forgot the cesium." Then he pulled a pellet of cesium out of his shirt pocket.
Oh, it's fine. It's fine. I'm just sort of safekeeping this glass of water.
This is my emotional support cesium. Right.
Turns out the machine was blinded by all the gamma rays coming from the cesium source.
Sorry, was your professor fucking Anatoly Dyatlov? What the fuck?
I gained immunity to large doses of radiation through exposing myself to large amounts of small doses of radiation.
Note to the viewers at home, do not do this.
Please do not try this. This man is a trained physicist.
Yo, do you think the guy's lung problem could have been related to just carrying some cesium in his jacket
No,
pocket?
cesium is making him more powerful. Just the nutty professor persona, except he's just carrying radiation sources with him constantly.
I know in my heart that the jacket pocket that contains that cesium is in like a tweed suit coat.
Yes. It's got the elbow patches too.
Yes. Roz has the same one, actually.
You'll see it at the next live show.
Yes, exactly.
He does have one. I've seen
Immediately
him wear
after this, a radiation cleanup effort started in his office.
Like, oh, I forgot this, and like 6 guys in hazmat suits come in.
What do you mean leave it inside the lead-lined container?
I hate when I'm coming back to my office and I open the door and there's a hazmat crew in there.
Oh, hey, Dr.
The
Smith.
hazmat crew arrives and opens the door to the office. The fucking demon corps is in there.
Yeah, you're just like, I don't know, you're just walking down the corridor to your office and there's a bunch of guys in hazmat suits and you're like, hey, and they're like, hey.
You're walking down towards the office one day and just a burst of Cherenkov radiation comes out the sides of the cracks in the door.
Good Lord, what is happening in there?
Oh, don't worry about it. That's normal. Now, when the new building for the physics when the new building for the physics department was constructed, his approach to nuclear safety was well known to everyone, so appropriate measures were taken. So guess what they surrounded his office with?
Lead.
No.
That steel that they get off of battleships.
No.
Fuck. What's like good cheap shielding? Like rubber or something?
Nope. If you guessed lead, you would be wrong, and you wouldn't be the first to try that guess. But the answer was teaching assistants.
Oh. You stupid rubes.
That's a good professor right there. Thank you, wacky radiation man. Well, that was safety third.
All right.
Our next episode
go ahead.
will be on the Tacoma Narrows Bridge disaster.
Oh, we're keeping the bit up?
It's not a bit. Not a bit.
It already was last week.
Listen.
Become a Patreon so you know what the hell we're talking about.
Yes.
Assuming you're not mad at us by this point. The bonus episode on the museum is coming. It's been really hard to write. We're really sorry. We are hoping to get that out. We will get that out this month. I am hoping that when Alice comes back, we can knock out her other motorsports episode. Please keep giving us money.
Yeah, we may get between 2 and 3 bonus episodes out this month just to make up for lost time.
Yeah. We will try to pump them out. Do we still have an Alice?
Good question. Did Alice drop out? Alice. Alice. We
all right.
No,
I'm Liam. That's Ruz. Alice is dead, and we are. Well, there's your problem.
Yes. Commercials.
When's the next Frank coming?
It's coming.
Okay.
I swear to God.
Okay.
I just have been having
one of these
issues.
days I'm just gonna leak it. I'll leak it. I swear to God, I'll leak it.
You have to come over here and steal the file from me.
Oh no! What a bird! Because I'm never at your house.
That's a good point. Well, you have to figure out how to render it too.
I can probably learn.
Okay. Good luck.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm. We're gonna call that the episode.
Yeah. Listen to Kill James Bond. Listen to Lions Led by Donkeys. Watch Do Not Eat's videos.
R.I.P.
Don't do 9/11. R.I.P. Alice.
Do not do 9/11.
Do not do 9/11.
It's our official stance on this podcast is 9/11 is not something you should do.
Yeah. Also, not everything is a conspiracy. Sometimes people act in bad faith to take advantage of situations.
I recommend against getting involved in political Islam.
Yeah. Also, don't do that.
Secularism is good.
Wahhabism bad. Can't believe we have to say that.
That's new train good, car bad is secularism good, Wahhabism bad. All right. All right, I'm calling it. That was the episode.
All right.
Bye,
everybody.
Good night, everybody.